I can't go out and join protests because I am a microbiologist. I know what coronavirus is, and I'm also a future physician. So I take the health of myself and my family very seriously. But what I did realize that I can do is that I can continue to share my story and interact with others. And I think the greatest need that we have as a country is to be able to listen to others without trying to be correct. I have wanted to be a physician since I was 8 years old. When I was little, you couldn't catch me without a book. I was always reading. I was the little nerdy girl with the thick glasses with a book in her hand. I read Gifted Hands, and I was in love with seeing a Black man who grew up in a lower income family that grew to become a world-renowned neurosurgeon. So from there, I wanted to be a doctor. I got good grades. I was in the National Honor Society. I was really involved in school and academics. But when it came time to start having that discussion about college, my mother raised us as a single mom in Baltimore City, and she doesn't really know how to navigate the applications, how to pay for college, what that process looks like. So I had to figure out, how am I going to make this dream of becoming a doctor happen? And I ended up joining the Army. You take this quiet, meek, very introvert girl and put a uniform on her and tell her to go fire a rifle. I loved it. And over time, I developed into a person who felt like, given time, I can accomplish anything. And with that mindset, I went back to college in 2013. I was a double major in cell and molecular biology and chemistry, and I knew that I wanted to be a doctor. So I also had to make sure that I focused all of that energy that I knew that I had into managing my life so that I can be an outstanding student, but also take care of my family. So I'm currently in my 5th year of an MD PhD program at the University of Maryland. And there are so many ways that we in the medical community have alienated the Black community. And it's a systemic issue, just like a lot of things in our country. It starts with representation within the medical community. Less than 3% of doctors are African American, even though we make up 13% of our country's population. We can't be what we can't see. It goes all the way back to slavery and Dr. Sims and his research on Betsy, Lucy, and Anarcha. Like, he is the father of gynecology. He has statues of himself all over the United States, but his notoriety was based off of the work he performed on slaves against their will. We've perpetuated these things all the way up to today. Even now, I just saw a study today on how we diagnose patients with renal failure, and the formula that we use is there's a corrective index if you're African American, which means that you would be less likely to be diagnosed as having renal failure, less likely to be put on the list for a kidney transplant if you're African American as opposed to any other race. There's general mistrust between the Black community and the medical community, which, again, as I mentioned, is based off of centuries of interactions. Look at Henrietta Lacks and how her cancer cells have been utilized. I use it in my own research, but her family still lives in poverty. And I think that we don't have that opportunity as Americans very often to interact with people that didn't grow up like us or don't have the same lived experiences as us. And I think that's something that we can solve now with how we're all incredibly connected with the internet and social media. You have the opportunity to learn about someone that's different from yourself from the comfort of your own home. And really, if you don't want to do that, that's something that you have to question in yourself and not in others. I honestly love America. I've lived in other countries. I would not want to live anywhere else. But that sentiment doesn't mean that I can't want better for America. I honestly think that we can be the great country that we think we are in our minds, but we have a lot of things to address and a lot of things to fix before we can be that great country. That doesn't mean I love it any less. That doesn't mean that I regret my service. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't go back and serve if I needed to. It means that you love something and you want what's best for it. And in this moment right now, we want what's best for our country as a whole and for all of its citizens, not just some.